بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين أما بعد. So we're going to continue tonight inshallah ta'ala من أخصر المختصرات. أخصر المختصرات في الفقه على مذهب الإمام أحمد بن حنبل رحمه الله. The book is by Shaykh al-Imam Muhammad ibn Badruddin ibn Balban. When we stopped last week, we did the first half of the chapter of Masah, wiping over the socks, or wiping over for the sisters to wipe over the khimar, or for the brothers to wipe over the imama, which we know as what? We don't know imama, the turban, wiping over the turban, or wiping over a cast, wiping over a cast or a bandage. If somebody's in a situation where they have to put a cast on, wiping over the cast. And we stopped after the time frame for wiping. When does the wiping start? The wiping starts when? When does the wiping start?
Start?
Yes.
When you make that first move, you put your socks on?
When you make the first wudhu and put your socks on.
No, when does it start? The time period?
Yes.
Oh, the time period starts from the time you break your wudhu.
From the time you break your wudhu?
After you put your socks on.
After you put your socks on. After you, from the time, as he says, from the hadith, after you put the socks on. طيب. So now he moves on, rahimahullah, to the conditions of wiping. In order to wipe over something, certain things have to be in order or you can't wipe over it. So for the sisters, in order to wipe over a khimar, when they're out around, moving around, there has to be conditions filled first before you can wipe over the khimar. Same thing for the socks, same thing for the turban or imama or the cast. The cast is an issue of khilaf, of course, because if a person's in a situation and they have to go to the hospital and get a cast on, nobody realistically has the time to tell the doctors, wait a minute, I gotta make wudhu. I gotta purify myself so I can wipe over the cast. So we're talking specifically things that are doable: the socks, the khimar, the turban, the imama. فقال رحمه الله وشرط تقدم كمال الطهارة كمال طهارة. Firstly, before a person can wipe over whatever they're planning on wiping over, that number one, that they have to be in wudhu. It says kamal tahara. They have to be completely in wudhu. Clear? Meaning, if a person made wudhu, right, and let's say they got to their feet, they cleanse their right foot, they wash their right foot, and after they wash their right foot, they put their sock on. They put the right sock on. Clear? They made the total wudhu, they made the wudhu, then they got to their right foot, they washed their right foot, and then they put the sock on. At that point, are they in wudhu?
No.
Why not?
They don't wipe my left foot.
They're not in kamal, they're not totally in wudhu yet. Clear? Specifically, kamal tahara. They have to be completely in wudhu before they can put the socks on. Let's say they put that sock on, and when they put that sock on, the right sock on the right foot, they break their wudhu. They break their wudhu all the way at the end. They break their wudhu, right? With any of the things that break wudhu. Well, let's just say they put that thing on, right? At that point, when they break the wudhu, are they eligible to wipe over the sock that's on the foot? Huh? 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 Yes, no? Yes. If it wasn't, so can they wipe over the sock or no? Like, who says no? You say no, why?
because he never completed the wudu before he
There you go. He never completed the wudu. The wudu has to be complete. As long as the left foot hasn't been washed, the wudu is not complete. If the wudu is not complete, if you're not totally in wudu where you can stand up and pray, then you can't wipe over the socks or the khimar or anything that can be wiped over until you're totally in wudu, and then you put that thing on, whether it's the imam or the turban, a woman puts the khimar on, and the man puts on, or a person puts socks on. They have to be totally in wudu. That's number one, the first condition. In order to wipe over the thing, they have to be totally in wudu. طيب. The second thing, وَسَتْرُ مَمْسُوحْ مَحَلَّ فَرْضٍ. Whatever they're wiping over, that it has to totally cover the area that is obligatory to wash. طيب. So مثلا, for example, when we wash the feet, with the foot, the ankle has to be washed. طيب. The ankle has to be washed with the foot. That means whatever we're wiping over, whatever type of sock we put on our foot, it has to cover at least up to the ankle. Whatever we wipe over on the foot has to cover at least up to the ankle. It could be a long sock. If it's a long sock, that's not an issue. But if it's the socks, for example, an ankle sock, do ankle socks cover the ankles? Some of them do, but some of them don't, right? The ones that don't are called footies, or no-shows. They call them no-shows. If it's a no-show, it's an issue now, because the no-show or the footy, it doesn't cover what's obligatory to wash, which is the ankle. And if the point of mess, of wiping, whatever you're wiping, is that it's ease. Now, it's ease in that you don't have to remove the thing in order to wash that body part. If the body part is already exposed, then there's no benefit in wiping it. Clear? If the ankle is exposed, then the mess, it doesn't meet the conditions to wipe over.
Okay, Shay, I know you touched on it briefly last week, but are you going to get to the point of the difference between a sock and a shoe? Because most shoes, you know what I mean, if it's not a boot, it don't cover the ankle.
G.
As a person, the reason why I ask, because say like you start the day and everything's clear. The sock is above the ankle,
G.
you make the white, and everything's cool, but then you put on a shoe.
Does the shoe fit the condition to wipe over? It's conditions, the wipe. Whatever you wiping, it has to cover the mahal al-farq. Whatever you were supposed to wash, whatever you're going to wipe, has to cover what you were supposed to wash. Does the shoe that you have on your foot, does it cover what you were supposed to wash?
So a boot.
A boot covers what you're supposed to wash. Right? But some of the track sneaks, right, they don't cover what you're supposed to wash.
So in that case, you have to take off.
In that case, hey, when you take it off and wipe it. These conditions are set like this, and they apply to, they're not just for the sock, it's for wiping. So whatever you're supposed to wash has to be covered in order to wipe it. That's a question for the sisters. It says, the third condition, ثُبُوتُهُ بِنَفْسِهِ. That, for example, that sock, it stays in position, meaning you don't need anything to hold it in place. Now, so that's a good question. Oh, let's stop right there real quick, because we got to go back to Satru Mansuh Mahal Farq. That what is wiped over has to cover what is obligatory to wash, sisters. And the question says about fishnet stockings that women wipe over. Fishnet stockings. We know fishnet, right? The ones with all the holes in them, right? Based on the conditions, can you wipe over fishnet stockings?
No.
It says no. Huh?
Covers.
Covers it? Like,
I mean, according to the condition, right, that it has to cover the whole thing, then it seemed a little tricky. But being as though it got the holes in it, it seems like to me, and I could be wrong, that the foot will be wet because it's nothing blocking the foot from being wet. Not even like moving.
G. Whatever has to be washed has to be covered. Meaning, and it might be a little clearer at the end when he mentions what breaks, what ends your time period for being able to wipe over that thing. That might clarify that. All right, so let's leave that to when we get to that part, inshallah. Tayyib? We're not going to skip it. We're going to come back to it when we get to the end. Tayyib. So, thubutuhu bi nafsihi, that the sock method, it doesn't need anything to hold it up. It has to be a sock that is standard, as we say. Like you don't need to tie anything around it to keep it in place. Everybody with me? Now, because we don't use this type of stuff, y'all, you can't, it's not, the idea is not that who does that. It's mentioned for a reason. Okay? It's mentioned for a specific reason. That the condition for the sock to be even wiped over, what happens if the sock is not fatted? You ever have like some weak socks where they keep sliding down, right? Like, if it's falling all the way down, it's not fatted like that. There's really no difficulty in removing it, right? And the mess, the wiping is for things that are difficult. There's some difficulty in removing, like the khimar that the women wear, the sisters wear. Not the khimar that they used to wear, with just the safety pin in it. The khimar that's worn, like we know it now, is the tarha, or the shayla, is worn and is wrapped, right? Not every turban can be wiped over. The imama, that's the turban, and is wrapped under the chin. So it's some difficulty in removing it. If the sock doesn't stay by itself, then, and it keeps falling, and this is, as they mentioned in the shop, that these conditions are the conditions based on what the Prophet ﷺ allowed the Sahaba knows to wipe over. He says, number 4, وَإِنْ كَانُوا مَشْيِ بِهِ عُرْفًا. He says, and that the next condition is that it's possible to actually walk in those socks, that the people consider them something to wear on the foot, right? Not something that a person puts on the foot and then calls it a sock. And the people know that's not a sock. For real, that's not a sock. Orphan to the people. That's why it specifies orphan, and it can be walked in, bihi orphan. Meaning you can't just throw anything on your foot and call it a sock. Right? And say this is, I can wipe over this, that it has to meet the conditions.
Could you give us a different description or a different definition or translation of what you just read? Because are you saying that was customarily known to be a sock?
No, it was customary known to be able that you can actually walk in it.
Right.
You can walk in it, right? And when you walk in it, that it doesn't need anything to hold it up. No. Like,
nurses wear on their feet or something like that. You know, in the hospital, they sit on their feet. You can't wear something like that. Like before they...
That sounds like number 3.
it's close to number 3. It's kind of a description of number 3. That basically, it doesn't fall down, which is number 3. Number 3 says specifically, it doesn't need to be thubut bi nafsihi. That it stays by itself, basically. You know, you got your good socks, and then you got some socks that's really like,
Drunk.
yeah, drunk, we used to call them drunk, right? So the socks that droop, right, those socks don't meet the condition. Why? They're not fatted. And if the droopy, we call them droopy socks, right? The droopy socks, if you walk far enough in them, then what happens to them? They start sliding down. And the whole point is with the sock that you wipe over, whatever you're wiping over, the whole point is that it constantly, at no time, does from the ankle below become exposed. The whole point is, as long as you're wearing it and as long as you plan on wiping on it, it has to be able to stay and cover the area that you would wash. You with me? Clear? So it's related to the previous one before that. طيب, he says, well, number 5, وَطَهَارَتُهُ, that the thing that is wiped over has to be something that is tahir. It's pure. It's not something made from najis, from filth. Like what? It's not a leather sock. It's made from what? Pigskin. If it's a leather sock made from pigskin, number one, you can't wipe over it. Why? If you were to wipe over it and pray in it, then you praying with najis, right? Which is not from the conditions of the salah. It's to remove all of the najasa, all of the filth. So you can't pray in something like that. If you can't pray, you can't wipe it. It can't be anything that is najis, that's made from najis. Clear? طيب, he says, in number 6, the 6th condition, وَإِبَاحَتُهُ, that thing is something that is permissible, meaning it's not stolen. Right? Somebody's stealing socks and they're outside selling them. And you know they stole them. We're not talking about people who sell socks. We're not saying everybody who sells socks that they stole socks. But somebody comes through, you know they stole the socks. Right? We're not talking about somebody who bought socks off them, then you found out that they were stolen. We're talking about somebody selling stolen merchandise at a cheaper price. Right? That you buy those socks knowing that they're stolen, and you can't wipe over them. And you can't wipe over them. That the rukhsah is not given to things that are maqsood, stolen or in the haram, something done in the haram. Clear? 6 conditions. Tell you how to wipe. How do we wipe over the sock? Tell you. He mentions 3 ways. وَيَجِبُ مَسْحُ أَكْثَرِ دَوَائِرِ الْإِمَامَةِ. When it comes to the turban, the imamah, that most of it has to be wiped. Most of the turban should be wiped. And they say also the khimar is like the imamah. The khimar for the sisters is like the imamah, that they should wipe most of the khimar. They should wipe most of the khimar. Yajibu, obligatory to wipe most of it. It says akthar, not all of it, most of it. They should wipe most of it. طيب. Number 2, وَأَكْثَرْ ظَاهِرِ قَدْمِ خُفْ. And most of the zahir of the khuf. When it comes to the sock, do we wipe the top or the bottom of the sock? The top. Do we need to wipe the bottom? Because that's the part we're talking about. There's no need to wipe the bottom based on the hadith of Ali ibn Abi Talib. Right? So when it comes to the sock, we don't wipe the bottom of the sock. The bottom of the sock doesn't have to be wiped. But the top of the sock is what's wiped. And it's worth reading that statement of Ali radiallahu anhu, where he said, لو كان الدين الرأي لكان أسفل الخف أولى بالمس من أعلاه. If this deen was based on what you think, what you feel, right? Then the bottom of the khuf, the bottom of the sock will have more right to be wiped than the top of the sock. It was based on what you think. He says, وَقَدْ رَأَيْتُ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ يَمْسَحْ عَلَى ظَاهِرِ الْخُفَّيْنِ. But I saw the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam, and he wiped over what part? The top of the sock, the top of his khufs. He didn't wipe over the bottom of the khuf. So the top of the khuf, most of the khuf, and in the more detailed books, they say you start from the toes. Start from the toes. You don't have to go all the way up your leg if you got a long socks. Most of the foot. It says 30, with jabiratin. The jabir or the cast or the bandage that a person has on, that all of that should be wiped. All of the cast or all of the bandage should be wiped. It's obligatory to be wiped. طيب. The next section, مبطلات المس. What invalidates my ability to wipe over that sock, or to wipe over the khimar, or to wipe over whatever we're wiping over? What invalidates my ability to wipe over those socks? طيب. Number one, and this goes back to the question from the sisters. طيب. Huh?
Take off the sock.
No, because they wearing the fishnet stockings. They wearing it. It's on. طيب. So, what breaks it, or what invalidates it, that a person, and when we say mubtilat, when we say it invalidates us being able to wipe over that sock, that means that now I have to remove the sock, wash my feet with water again, a regular wudhu on my skin with water, and then I have to put the sock back on in order to wipe on it. طيب. It says, number one, وَإِنْ ظَهَرَ بَعْضُ مَحَلِّ فَرْضٍ. If some of what is covered becomes exposed. If some of what is covered becomes exposed. Clear? So if I have a sock on, right, and what has to be covered when I wipe my socks? Up into the ankles. So that means if some of my ankle becomes exposed, then I have to do what? That what? It validates my wiping. I can't wipe over them socks anymore. Clear? You with me? Sheikh? You with me? طيب. The fishnet stocking is always, the also of the fishnet stocking is the part that has to be washed is always exposed. So how you gonna wipe over it in the first place? Sisters, I hope that's clear. If I have a sock on, nothing, for example, I get a mosquito bite. So what do? I need to scratch my foot. So I push my sock that I'm wiping over, I push it down, and you know how you put your sock, you don't take it all the way off, but you push it like to the halfway point of your foot. That means my heel and my ankle is exposed. Once what is supposed to be washed becomes exposed, you gotta take the socks off and start from scratch. Clear? Now how is that going to work with fishnet stockings when the usle of fishnet stockings is that majority of the foot is exposed when you put them on anyway? Clear, sisters? طيب. If it's not clear, let us know, inshallah. This is the first thing. If anything that has to be wiped over becomes exposed, then in that case, that breaks your ability to wipe over that sock. Meaning you got to take the socks off, make a fresh wudhu, and put the socks back on. And start all over. طيب, that's the first thing. The second thing that breaks the mess on the sock or the khimar, whatever it is, anybody know? This is based on something we already did.
Ask the question again.
What breaks the wiping? I can no longer wipe over those socks anymore. I have to take them off, make a fresh wudhu, and then start over. Huh? The time frame ends. When the time frame ends for the traveler is what? 3 days and 3 nights. So when that's over, the traveler, if they want to wipe, if they want to continue wiping over their socks, they have to take them off, make a fresh wudhu on the skin with the water, and then they can put them back on. Clear? And the resident is the same thing. After 24 hours, person they're not traveling, the resident, if they want to wipe, 24 hours pass, they can't keep wiping. No, you got to take them off, make wudhu, put socks back on, then you can start all over.
So I briefly asked this last week. So with the traveler, if he's going to be gone for longer than 3 days, that 3 days is always reoccurring as long as he's traveling. Like it doesn't switch to a resident as long as he's traveling. You understand the question?
Yeah, I understand the question. That's, as long as he's traveling. As long as you're a traveler, you have this option. As long as you're a traveler. But we're not going into the issue of when is a person not a traveler. wouldn't. You understand what I'm saying? As long as you're a traveler, you have this option. طيب? طيب, so those two things. If something becomes exposed from the foot, for example, the ankle, the heel, you can't just slide it back up and say I'm wiping over. Number one. Number two, if the time frame ends, then you have to take them off, wash your foot with wudu, with a regular wudu, and then start all over. Start all over meaning make wudu with water on everything like a normal wudu without wiping, and then they can start again. You can start again. Clear? Questions? Sisters, is that clear as far as the fishnet? Inshallah? طيب. So we want to stay away from, well, not stay away from, not to say you can't wear fishnet stockings or socks, but we're talking about wiping over them. That's a different issue. Not that brothers can't wear no-show socks or footies or booties or whatever you call them, but wiping over them is something different.
All right, let's say before you do everything, you put your socks on before you do, and then you put your sneakers on.
J.E.
So then you break your wudu as you got your sneakers on.
Right.
You got your sneakers on, you never took them off. Can you wipe them on the sneakers and not take the sock off the break and your sneakers?
You make wudu, you put a sock on, you in wudu, then you put a sneaker on top of the sock. طيب. You break wudu, now you want to wipe over the sneaker. That's an issue. Number one, is the sock, does the shoe meet the requirement of covering everything that needs to be covered? If it meets the requirement, then there's no problem in wiping over the iron shed. But if it doesn't meet the requirement, then that's another issue. And wiping over the second thing, that's some detail. That has detail too that since the author didn't mention it, I'm not going to mention it. Like the sisters. All right? We don't want to turn the muqtasar book into something that it's not supposed to be. طيب. It says, can you explain how a woman wipes over her khimar, she doesn't just wipe over her head? The khimar is on the head, right? You wipe it a'la shay. You wipe it, I'm sorry, you wipe it most of it. You wipe it most of the khimar. There is no, that I know of, specific way of wiping as we have in Wudhu. We know in Wudhu you start from here, you go to the back, and then you come back to the front, right? I don't know of anything specific, instructional-wise, for the woman wiping over the khimar. But what has to be wiped is the majority of it. The majority of it needs to be wiped. Allah knows best. And even when it comes to the wiping of the head in the wudu, the ulama differ of the way you should wipe and what needs to be wiped and all of that. Allah alam on if there's any specific way, but what we know is that most of it needs to be wiped. The majority of it needs to be wiped. Allah alam. طيب, فصل. نواقض الوضوء ثمانية. This section is on what breaks the wudu. As we say, I broke my wudu, right? Or sometimes it's translated as invalidators. What invalidates the wudu. Meaning, if any one of these things is done, then a person cannot pray until they make a new wudu. طيب? It's a naqid. Invalidators, just like we have the nawaqid of Islam, the things that invalidate a person's Islam. And if they do something from these things, then it invalidates their Islam, they need to take shahada again. Right? Also, we have nawaqid al-wudu, that if a person does one of these things, then they don't have to do all of them. If they do one of them, then it invalidates the wudu, and they have to make wudu all over again. طيب. He says there are eight things that invalidate the wudu. قال رحمه الله خارج من سبيل مطلقة. Anything that comes out of one of the two private parts, regardless of what it is. Anything that comes out, that breaks the wudu. Clear? Whether it's a little, a lot, anything that comes out of one of the two private parts, the front or the back, it breaks the wudu. Clear? Pay attention, y'all, because breaking the wudu doesn't mean and necessitate you have to make a ghusl. Clear? Breaking wudu is one thing. Making a ghusl, obligatory to make a ghusl, is something different. So we're talking about right now, what breaks the wudu? And we're not talking about, as we're going to come to, it doesn't necessarily mean we're talking about things that are permissible or impermissible. That's not the issue. What breaks a person's wudu? That's all we want to know right now. Clear? Like, it says anything that comes out from one of the two private areas, the penis, the vagina, or the rectum. Clear? Under that, also, because specifically we're talking about on a more common basis, urinating, urine, and feces, right? Like, if they come out of the normal areas, it breaks the wudu. And anything that come out of those areas breaks the wudu, period. Like, it says, وَخَارِجٌ مِنْ بَقِيَةِ الْبَدَنِ مِنْ بَوْلٍ وَغَائِطٍ وَكَثِيرٍ نَجِسٍ غَيْرِهِمَا. Like, sometimes urine or feces can come out of another part of the body. Everybody with me? Clear? Example? You got an example?
Yeah, I got one.
Like, video.
Such if a person wears a colostomy bag.
Jaded, right? The person's sick. They got to drain. They have to drain the urine or whatever it is from a different part of the body, right? That breaks the wudu. That breaks the wudu. Urine and feces coming out of the body breaks the wudu, whether it's from the normal area or from another area. Clear? طيب. He says, وَكَثِيرٍ نَجِسٍ غَيْرِهِمَا. Or some najis other than urine or feces that comes out of the body. Like, blood. But he says kathir, a lot of blood, not a little bit of blood. Let's use blood. A lot of blood breaks the wudu. Okay? Not a little bit of blood. Clear? So when do we see a little bit of blood? A cut could be a lot of blood, depending if it leaks a lot, right? When do you see a lot of blood? No. General. What would be considered a little bit of blood to us? Maybe a paper cut. A nosebleed could get heavy. A paper cut might have a little blood come out. You might have a mosquito bite that been there, you've been scratching, you scratch it, and that little bit of blood come in, right? I think most of us would consider that little. When you talk about a nosebleed, right, depends. We say it was leaking, we start saying it's leaking, and we know that was a lot of blood, right? So, the filth that is a lot that comes out of the body, and that also breaks the wudu. Not the little bit of blood, it's a lot of it. Najis kathir, yanqul. طيب. Clear? That means that if we say, as he's saying, it's a lot of blood comes out and it breaks the wudu. So what if it's not a lot of blood? Then what? You still in wudu. It doesn't break the wudu. طيب. طيب. Number two is زوال عقل إلا يسير نوم من قائم أو قاعد. When a person loses their consciousness, it breaks the wudu. Whether it's with somebody fainted, somebody went into a coma, somebody fell asleep, And they specify there's one type of sleep that doesn't break the wudu. Meaning if you go to sleep at night and wake up, you gotta make wudu to pray. Or if you go in the house after work and take a 3-hour nap, you wake up to pray Asr, you gotta make wudu. Oh yeah? No. A person loses their consciousness. But the exception for a sleeping person is, as he says, as we say, a person is nodding off. He's not asleep, he's nodding. How we know he's nodding? You know, you wake up, say, yeah, you were sleeping, I heard everything y'all said. I heard you. Who was that talking? I might not know the person, but I heard y'all talking, and a person knows what's going on around him, right? This person, and they specify that they might be standing up, or they're sitting down like y'all sitting on the wall. You're sitting on the wall waiting for the adhan, the brother head drop, right? He's not. And that doesn't break the wudu. Or if a person is standing up and they do that, then it doesn't break the wudu. Some people, they say, I'm just going to make wudu. You know. Cool, but if a person didn't make wudu, and they say, no, I heard everything, I was aware, right? Then that doesn't break the wudu based on the Sahaba, that they were waiting for the salat, the hadith that they were waiting for the salat, and that their heads dropped down because they were nodding off. And then when it came time to pray, they stood up and they went to pray and they didn't make wudu. And of course the Sahaba didn't pray without wudu, right? The Messenger, which shows that this type of nod or this type of sleep doesn't break the wudu. That's why it specifies Zawal al-Aql, when a person loses their consciousness, which sleep, you lose your consciousess for a amount of time, that it's a light sleep from a person that's sitting up, not a person that's laying down. A person that's sitting up, not the one that's laying down, or the person that's standing up. That type of sleep doesn't break the wudu. Clear? Like that was number 2. Number 3, وَغَسْلُ مَيِّت. غَسْلُ مَيِّت. The person who washes the body of the dead person. Meaning, if you go to wash a body, and not the person pouring the water, as the earlier specified, the person that's handling the body. If you never washed the body, anybody ever washed the body? Anybody didn't wash the body? All right, you gotta wash the body. You gotta wash the body. But when you go in there, you gotta lift the brother up. You gotta put your hands, 2 people or 3, depending on how big they are. You gotta cup him from the back because he has to be washed. You gotta make it whistle. So you fold the arms, pull the brother over like this. Those people that are pulling and touching the body have to make wudu. Not the person, for example, who's standing back pouring the water. طيب غسل ميت. That's number 3. Number 4, وأكل لحم إبل. Eating camel meat. Has anybody here ever had camel meat? You never had camel? You go to make Hajj at home and eat the camel meat. It breaks the wudu. These break the wudu and they make wudu based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Eating camel meat breaks the wudu. And they specify that, all right, we don't eat. It's like camel is not something that we eat here, but again, Islam is not restricted to Philly, it's not restricted to America, it's not restricted to the East Coast, Islam is for the world. The place where people eat camel. And just like we have chicken broth and all that kind of stuff, they make soup and they use this, it's the same thing for camel, right? So what breaks the wudu is the meat itself, not the other things. And if a person it wasn't from the meat, it was something else from the camel. Not everything that a camel breaks the wudu, but the meat. Based on the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. Number 5, or ridda, apostasy. Allah protect us all. I mean, when a person is in wudu and then they apostate, that they are no longer in the state of wudu, right? Because this belief does what to a person's actions? Nullifies all of their actions, and wudu is from the actions. Tahara is from the actions.
That's a tricky one. Because, sometimes a person can, they can make a statement based on them being ignorant. And they hold to that statement because they just don't know no better, and the statement literally causes them to be thrown out of Islam. Because they believe that what they're saying is true, but they honestly don't know. So would they have to make wudu in that sense, or ghusl in that sense, if they come later and find out that they're actually wrong? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. Number one, if that's the case, then number one, in order for a person not to be considered a Muslim anymore, that takes some detail. Because there's an issue which is called al-udhr bil-jahl. Al-udhr bil-jahl. That a person could be excused due to their ignorance. Not to mean that what they said was right, not to mean that it's okay, but what is their situation? What's the ruling on them? Are they still Muslim or are they not Muslim anymore? Okay? Which is a case-by-case situation. You can't say, Fulan said this, we all know that's in the nullifiers of Islam. That's number 6. That's number 6 in the things that take you outside Islam. Oh, that's what he said, yeah. Well, he ain't Muslim, huh? Nah. That, it takes more than that. It's a little more detail to the issue. So if that was the case, it would have to be a case-by-case situation. It couldn't just take something from those 10 that I mentioned in the famous book, Sheikh Muhammad Wahab, and then start applying on people. You know what I'm saying? Because it could be that a person is excused. Not excused meaning it's okay. Excused from the hukum coming down on them and them being declared as a disbeliever, possibly. طيب. That was number 5, الردة, apostasy. وكل ما أوجب غسلا غير موت. Everything, we have everything that necessitates a ghusl, right? If you do a thing and it necessitates that you make a ghusl, that means it also breaks your wudu. Clear? Everybody with me? We have hadith asghar, hadith akbar. We have the small impurity, and then we have the major impurity. The major impurity trumps the small. So we can say it like that, the minor impurity. So if you gotta make a ghusl, then of course you gotta make wudu. If it breaks you, if you do something, a person does something, and it calls, okay, if you do that, you gotta make a ghusl. But if you gotta make a ghusl, then in bab ola, you have to make wudu. Then of course you gotta make wudu. Clear? You with me? When you wash your body, you have to change your clothes. No, I don't know of anything specifying that you have to change your clothes when you wash your body. But the breaking of the wudu is the issue. Now a person might change their clothes just, I feel dirty, right? I was out there, we was moving dirt, I was in the place, I feel like it was dirty in there. Out of just how I feel, I just want to change my clothes, put on something clean. That's one thing. That's not the issue. The issue is praying in those clothes that you wash the body in. As long as no najis is on the clothes, because it's possible that urine comes out of the body, it's possible that feces comes out of the body, it's possible that the body's bleeding still. As long as those things don't get on the clothes, then you can still pray in the clothes. You can still pray in the clothes. Fine. The next one. ومس فرج آدمي متصل أو حلقة دبره بيد. Alright. These issues here, and this probably is not far-fetched the type of time we live in, but they mention these specific things for a specific reason. The touching of the private part, right? Farj Adam, of a human being. Everybody with me? Their private part is still connected to the body. It's It's connected to the body. Right? And that they touch that thing with their hand. They touch it with their hand. Nah. They touch it with their hand. And this breaks the wudu. Or if a person touches the rectum.
So touching your private part breaks the wudu.
Touching your private part with your hand. Skin on skin. Nothing between. So we're not talking about gloves. Most people are walking around with gloves. But you know, sometimes, I don't know if that's what that's. I ain't gonna say that. The wedgie, sometimes, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes the clothes are not positioned accordingly. So you gotta adjust your clothing, right? You might have to adjust your clothing in your private area. That doesn't break the wudu because it's a barrier between the skin. The touching that breaks the wudu is the skin on skin. That's the issue. When it's a barrier, a cloth, something between, even if it's gloves, it's something between the skin, that doesn't break the wudu. Clear? طيب. Or the rectum. Touching the rectum breaks the wudu. Of course, with no barrier between them. Fadl. طيب. طيب, we'll deal with this one at the end. Inshallah. طيب. Number 8. ولمس ذكر أو أنثى الآخر لشهوة بلا حال فيهما. Touching a man touching a woman, or a woman touching a man. Huh?
Nah, I'm just.
Break the wudu or
As
not?
far as the private thing, I thought it was only touching it in a sexual manner breaks the wudu.
Nah.
No.
When that's a ذكره فليتوضأ. Right? He said whoever touches their private part can go make wudu. He said that he thought that the touching the private part had to be in a sexual manner. Right? The thought was that I thought if you touched yourself you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah, if somebody's masturbating,
Right.
then that will break the wudu. Not necessarily. Skin on skin, to touch the private area with the hand breaks the wudu. To touch someone else's private area with the hand, skin on skin, breaks the wudu. Clear? Tell you now, not even the private area, just a man touching a woman or a woman touching a man. You touch your wife.
That would break the wudu.
Now break the wudu. Huh? The wife touches her husband.
Now,
Touch, not even in the private, no.
Just touch.
Touch him generally. Right? You'll leave the masjid. Alhamdulillah. Right? You open the door, you hold her hand, whatever it is. Right? That don't break the wudu. But they specify that the man touching the woman or the woman touching the man breaks the wudu if it's done with desire. It's shahwa. Right? You trying to take it further than you just came in the house, you give your wife a kiss or vice versa. Right? That is really some shahwa there, some desire there that you're trying to go further. The desire, the touch with the desire is what breaks the wudu, and on top of that, that the touch, again, as they say, bila ha'il fihima. Skin on skin. Skin on skin. Right? This is not, these issues are not like issues to play with. Right? But it's issues, if I do this, am I okay to pray? Like skin on skin. When they talk about touching, lips is skin to skin. Not talking about something between. So you got on clothing, you have on clothes, right? And you do what? Maybe you rub your wife's arm or you rub her leg. Whatever you rub, right? And it even specifies it's going to see what?
It's tricky, Sheikh.
Ain't tricky.
This
Listen, keep it simple. Skin on skin is what breaks it. If it's not skin on skin, then that's not the issue. That's the mess.
Let me tell you why it's tricky. If you marry and you're attracted to your wife or you're attracted to your husband, it may be a thing, you just grab her hand and be like, I'm gonna tear you up. Like, it's not even, you understand what I'm saying?
You could say that with no desire at the time.
Right, not at that time.
You understand what I'm saying?
I'm saying later.
Yeah.
Yes, that's why I'm saying.
The touch with desire.
Like you going, like.
Right now. The desire is right now. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Right? You're not talking about, you can say anything in your wife.
Right.
Or she can say anything. It could be, you know what I'm saying? It has to be the touch, skin on skin with desire. That's why they give all that detail.
So foreplay then, would that be better?
No, because it has to meet skin on skin, has to be touching.
Skin on skin foreplay.
Listen, foreplay is a very wide term. All foreplay don't necessitate that it's skin on skin.
Yeah, that's why I said. So would it be better to say skin on skin foreplay?
Oh, if you say skin, yeah, foreplay that involves
That's
skin
like-
touching, yeah, if you want to detail it like that, yeah. Because foreplay is done with desire.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So if it's done with desire and the skin is touching, then that's going to break the wudu.
Right.
If it's done with desire and the skin is not touching, it doesn't break the wudu. Break the wudu. Yes.
So you put lotion on your wife, lotion her up, that's breaking the law. You just, you hit my
I
spot.
told you tricky shit.
This is what I'm saying. If you want to go there, right, you got to know yourself.
Yeah.
You got to know, if I do that, what's the reality? Right? It don't necessitate that if you did that it was with desire. It don't necessitate it. Everybody different. And the brain could be mashghul. You could be busy with something here, and your wife, or opposite, the wife could be busy with something here, and her husband is looking for foreplay, or opposite, the man is busy mentally, he got something on his mind, the wife is looking for foreplay, and they don't have the desire. You with me? And it's a story that Ibn Hajar, al-Asqalani, rahimahullah, if I'm not mistaken, that his aspirations and knowledge was so high. It's a story mentioned in his biography when his wife came in the room, dressed up. You know, she prepared herself for him, and she came and stood over top of him while he was writing the hadith and recording what he was recording. He says, so I looked up at her, and they described she was beautified herself, perfume, right? He said, I looked up at her, I dropped my head back, and I kept writing. And she left out angry. Right? If the person's brain is busy with something, the desire might not be there. So that's why they stipulate that the touching with desire. And that's why I'm saying these issues are nothing to play with. Because if you do that, and you had desire, don't go stand and pray like that. If you did it and there was no desire there, you know what's in the heart. And Allah knows. You know what I'm saying? Allah knows. You know. Did you have a desire when you touched the wife in that case? If so, make wudu. I don't really know. What's the safest thing to do if you don't really know? Make wudu on the safe side. You know?
It's heavy what you just said because with the two people, the husband and the wife, that, you know, in the case where you lotioning, you can have desire, but she don't.
Right.
So you might have to make wudu, and she don't.
Don't touch Jade.
I mean, look.
And that's an issue that's going to come up. So now look, this is how specific they get. And we want to try to finish this chapter maybe. He says, La li sha'r, wa sinnin wa dhufrin, wa la biha, wa la man duna sab'in. So say for example, in order for it to break the wudu, it has to be what? The touching. Desire and
Skin to skin.
skin on skin. So that means if you rub your hand through her hair, then what? Does that break the wudu? Or she rubs her hands on your hair?
No.
They don't break the wudu. It has to be skin on skin. The next thing they mention, this is not for, you never know. Let's just say, مثلا, for example, And this is mentioned because there's some people who believe if you touch a woman, regardless, period, the wudu is broken. Some scholars hold that position. This is why they give it so much detail. Because some, you touched her, the wudu is broken. That's why when you go to Hajj and Umrah, the people who follow that position, you find them wearing gloves. They wear gloves, especially like when they make tawaf and stuff. There's so many people, you touch somebody, your wudu broken. Break wudu, you need wudu to make tawaf. Anybody made Hajj and Umrah, you know the bathrooms is way out there. So what if a person touches her hair? Or she says, something, I got a pain in the back of my mind. See, something's hurting back here. You see anything? And you touch her tooth. Break the wudu? Touching the tooth?
No, because it's not what desire.
It's not skin. Touching, and that's the skin on skin. You see how specific how deep, this is a summarized book, y'all. But you see how far they go to be specific exactly what we're talking about. She got a problem, my tooth loose. Where? This one? No. Dang, I touched her, I gotta make wudu. No. The touch is on the skin with desire. Or if he did the same thing. Touching with the tooth or anything outside of the skin doesn't break wudu. One minute I do in a 7. They say, or touching the one under 7 years of age. طيب. Yes.
Is there anything else that breaks the wudu? The reason why I asked, such as the dog licking you.
Dog licking breaking wudu? Now, I don't know if the dog licking you breaks your wudu, but that's najis that needs to be cleaned off. The dog spit is najis, it's filth that has to be cleaned before you can pray. You with me? Najis on you don't necessarily break your wudu. You with me? Mathalan, I'm in wudu, right? I go outside, I step in a puddle, I thought it was water, but it's dog urine. Somebody walked their dog and the dog peed out the street. So now I got the urine, for example, maybe it's on my pants leg, it's on the bottom of my throat. Does that break my wudu because it's urine on my throat? It doesn't break my wudu, but before I pray, I still have to clean the urine off. I still have to clean the filth off before I pray, but it doesn't necessarily break the wudu. So yeah, I don't know of anything that the dog literally breaks the wudu. So yeah. Now, this is the issue he was talking about. وَلَا يَنْقُضُ وَلَا يَنْتَقِدْ وُضُوءُ الْمَلْمُوسٍ مُطْلَقًا. And the ulama, for example, as he said, the malmus they call, is the one that is being touched. Right? So the man touches his wife with desire, but she doesn't have the desire. Whose wudu is broken? The man. What about her wudu? Her wudu is not broken. As her wudu wasn't touched with, she was touched. So the one that is touched, that their wudu is not broken. Or the woman touches the husband. She touched him with desire, but he didn't have any desire. They would say that his wudu is okay or her wudu is broken, the malmus. Like, is that clear? The malmus, the one who is touched, their wudu is not broken, but the toucher, we could say, their wudu is broken. What they do is skin with the desired on the conditions. طيب. ومن شك في طهارة أو حدث بنى على يقينه. If a person has doubt, and this is a qaida that sticks with us and it goes through a lot of different angles. If a person has doubt in if they're in wudu or not, right? You know, it's time to pray. It's time to pray Isha. Brother stands up, or sister stands and says, "Hey, my wudu. Did I break my wudu?" You know, be thinking out loud, talking. You can't really ask nobody. Right? So you say, "Did I break wudu?" Oh yeah. Then it says, "Bana ala yaqinihi." You take what you're sure of. You build on what you're sure about. Did you pray Maghrib? I prayed Maghrib. Did you make wudu for Maghrib? I made wudu for Maghrib. You sure you made wudu for Maghrib? I'm sure I made wudu for Maghrib. Did you break wudu? I'm not sure if I broke wudu. Then what do we go with? What we not sure about or what we sure about? We go about what we're sure about, which means I'm still in wudu. Why? Because that's what's sure. I'm certain that I made wudu for Maghrib. I've been sitting here since Maghrib in class, and I made wudu when I came in and prayed Maghrib. I'm sure about that. Did I break it? I'm not sure about that. We don't go with a question mark over something that we're sure about. Clear? Same thing if I wasn't in wudu. Right? It's the same thing. I know I broke wudu. I went to the bathroom and broke wudu. I know I didn't make wudu when I came out because there was too many people at the sink. And then I started talking and I walked off. So I'm sure I didn't make wudu after the salah when I came out of the bathroom. But did I make wudu when I went in the house? You go with what you're sure about. What I'm sure about is I went to the bathroom and I broke wudu. That's the yaqeen. That's what I'm certain about. So if a person has doubt in either one, then you go with what you're sure about. طيب. And this is the last portion. وَحَرُمَ عَلَى مُحْدِث مَسُّ مُصْحَفٍ وَالصَّلَاةِ الطواف على جنب ونحو ذلك. طيب. We had two states that we could be in. Either we need to make wudu or we need to make a ghusl. طيب. If I need to make wudu, then there's certain things that I can't do. And if I need to make a ghusl, then there's certain things that I can't do. Clear? So if I need to make wudu, haram, not permissible, number one, to touch the mushaf. Touching the mushaf. The mushaf, y'all, is not the noble. The noble, as we say we call it, the noble is not the mushaf. The noble Quran. With the translation, it's not the mushaf. The mushaf is the Arabic, from beginning to end. Right? The mushaf. Touching the mushaf, number one. Number two, of course, we can't do what when we not in wudu? Salah. We can't pray. Number three, tawaf around the Kaaba. You can't make tawaf without wudu. There's three things. Those three things are also included if I need to make a ghusl. If I need to make a ghusl, then of course I can't pray, I can't touch the mushaf, and I can't make tawaf, right? Now it's two more things added for the person who needs to make a ghusl. Everybody with me? For the person who needs to make wudu, we already got three things. The person who needs to make a ghusl, that's also included for them too, and it's two additional things. The person who needs to make a ghusl, really that comes in the next chapter. What makes a ghusl obligatory. But one of them is when a woman comes off of her menstrual cycle, she has to make a ghusl. Or after postpartum bleeding, then a woman has to make a ghusl. Right? Or after intercourse, the man and the woman have to make a ghusl. So the one, and that person is called a junub. You need to make wudu, ghusl, junub. That person who needs to make ghusl, also on top of the first three, also not permissible for them, qira'atu ayat Quran. Reciting, not just touching the mushaf, even reciting the ayat from the Quran for the one who needs to make ghusl. Due to the hadith of the Prophet. Nothing prevents me from reading the Quran except for the ghusl kind of Quran. That's number one. So now we have the four things for the person who needs to make a ghusl. 3 for the person who needs to make wudu, 4 for the person who needs to make a ghusl. Right? طيب. The last thing, وَلُطْفٌ فِي مَسْجِدٍ بِغَيْرِ وُضُوءٍ. That the person who needs to make a ghusl cannot just sit in the masjid without at least making wudu. This is the practice of the Sahaba. That realistically, if a person needs to make a ghusl, right, that means they can't pray, right? So what if they make wudu? Are they going to be able to pray? No, they still can't pray. If you had to make a ghusl and you just made wudu, that doesn't allow you to pray. Everybody with me? Clear? So what's the benefit of making wudu? Anybody know? The benefit of making wudu, I need to make a ghusl. So if I make wudu, it's not going to allow me to pray anyway because I have to make a ghusl. So why, if I'm sitting in the masjid, huh? No, I'm still junub. I still need to make a ghusl. They said the person sitting, this is what the Sahaba used to do. What's the benefit? They say it lightens the filth. Right? It doesn't remove it enough that you can pray, but the Sahaba would at least make wudu. If they needed to make a ghusl and they were going to sit in the masjid, that they would at least make wudu. They would at least make wudu if they want to sit in the masjid. So it says, one of these questions, what makes you an apostate if you have a doubt or whisper pertaining to Islam? Does that count? This is super general. This is a general question that there are a lot of things that could nullify a person's Islam, the Shahada. Doubts, and when you say it's difficult to apply them to people, you can't take them and just apply them to people. Because as I said before, it could be that the person who goes or does one of those things has an excuse. And if they have an excuse, then that rule of being an apostate doesn't count for them. You with me? But there are a lot of things, from magic, practicing magic is one of the nullifiers of Islam. Shirk, worshiping other than Allah. There are a whole list of, not to say laundry list, but there are books written on that with just a list of things that nullify a person's Islam. Now, does that mean because a person has a doubt? It depends. What is the doubt based on? What is the doubt about? Who's the person that's doubting? That's not, as they say, a cookie cutter answer. It's a case by case. As far as the things that are, especially not a whisper, the whispers from the shaitan. And there are prayers that we should say to keep the shaitan away. As far as each person saying, I had a doubt about this, and then they doubt about their Islam, I wouldn't go that far to do that. But if you want to know just the things that are considered to take a person outside of Islam, that's not hard to find. But again, you can't just apply those things to each and every person, especially not on yourself. It's a case-by-case situation, and it's based on the person. There's a lot of detail to making takfir on somebody. Declaring a Muslim, established Muslim, to declare them not to be a Muslim is difficult. It's not something that's light. As far as one of the issues for the women, or not for just the women, because it could happen to a man too. Sometimes, and this could vary also, sometimes a person, and it happens, they call it salasana. It could happen with urine, or it can happen with semen. That a man and a woman have intercourse, right? They clean themselves, they make a ghusl, and then before they pray, it's possible they see more leakage, right? It's possible to see more leakage after they did all the cleaning. Now, it depends. Is the person sick? The person have an issue? The person might have an issue. The people who are constantly, and we say leak. They constantly leak some type of fluid. They can't stop leaking, right? There are people like that, and they have to deal with the salah a certain way. If that's not the case and there's no sickness on the person, then it has to be looked at, and this is the importance of making sure that when we clean ourselves for the salah, that we're focused and we're not in a rush, and we make sure we do a thorough job, right? It's possible that the body is not finished, right? It's possible. If it's not, I want to say extreme case, but if it's a case where everything was fine and at the last minute, I don't know that would, I'll say this. The safest thing to do, you made a ghusl. Everything was fine. That means you can pray, right? They made a ghusl. Everything was fine. They made you can pray. You go, you get ready to pray, some leakage. At the least, that leakage does what? Break your wudhu. Right? Because anything that comes out of the private area breaks the wudhu. So at the least, the safest thing is to make istinja, clean yourself with water, and then make wudu, and then pray. Now if that keeps happening, then it might be some problem, man. It might be a sickness. And if it's a sickness, then the sick person who constantly leaking, they don't have to keep going back and forth making wudu. They pray how they are. And they clean themselves right before they pray, and they do that. But the person who doesn't have a problem, at the least, on the safe side, the wudu is broken. Something came out, the wudu is broken. You make istinja and make wudu and pray. Because you already made ghusl, and after the ghusl you were fine, right? Now it's time to pray, you see some leakage. Well, I know at the least I know anything that comes out of the private area breaks the wudu. So I'll just clean myself, make istinja, and make wudu and pray. Inshallah. If your mens is on and you want to read the mushaf, do you need to make wudu? Does anybody know why they're asking this question, brothers? If your mens is on, this is for the brothers. If the woman, if your wife, her mens is on, and she wants to read the mushaf, right? She says, does she have to make wudu? What's the benefit of that question?
Benefit of the question?
Yeah, why even ask that? Why are they even asking that? Huh?
You can't touch the mushaf.
Right. She can't even touch the mushaf. She knows she can't touch the mushaf because she's on the menses. And while she's on the menses, she can't touch the mushaf. So now the question is, well, since I can't touch the mushaf, should I make wudu and touch it? This is what he didn't mention. This is from the benefit of the shorter books, is that when they say touch the mushaf, they mean touch the mushaf like this. With what? Skin. So what you find is, I don't know if they have them here, but they got them all over in Mecca and Medina and stuff like that. So you find they have mushaf covers, which is a cloth. It's a cloth that you can put on the front of your mushaf. This way, there's a barrier between the skin and you actually touching the mushaf. And a lot of women use that when they are on their menses, so that they fear they might forget. They memorize, they fear they might forget the eye, they don't want to forget anything. Or they're trying to do something, they need to touch the mushaf, so they do what? They put a barrier between it. Or you'll see sisters sometimes, I don't know if sisters ever saw it, sometimes they'll come, and you hand them the mushaf, and they take a piece of their shayla, their khimar, and they grab the mushaf, if this was the shirt, this was the scarf, they'll take a piece of the scarf down, put it in their hand, and grab the mushaf like that with the scarf. Which means what? Her menses is on, or maybe she's postpartum, she needs to make a ghusl, so she doesn't want to touch the mushaf. If she understands, right, that I can't touch the mushaf when I need to make a ghusl, clear? Or, sister might have on gloves. She might say, put this over there for me, hold on, let me put my gloves on. A person who understands is going to say, okay, maybe she needs to make a ghusl. A person who doesn't understand is going to grind her up. Putting gloves on, put the mushaf on there, right? That's extra, right? But if you know, okay, she's putting a barrier, she's putting that on because she doesn't want to touch the mushaf with her skin. In that case, Allah, do you need to make wudu? I don't know of anything specifying that a sister who wants to read the mushaf on her menses needs to make wudu. All I know of is the touching the mushaf with a barrier between. As long as she's not touching it, not that she should do it. If she has to touch the mushaf, that she should touch it with a barrier between her hand, her skin, and the mushaf itself. Allah Ta'ala. Any other questions? Okay. If you need to make a ghusl, but if you can't make the ghusl at the masjid, what do you mean a person doesn't have anywhere else to go? If a person doesn't have anywhere else to go, and they need to make a ghusl, that's deep. At the least, bare minimum. and it's time to pray. First thing is, they have absolutely nowhere to go. First thing is this. They should wait as long as the salat, let's assume that we have time for the salat, right? Let's just say, for example, Dhuhr comes in at 12:50, is 1:30. Dhuhr is in until 4 o'clock. So you got till 4 o'clock, right? A person should wait. Why? What's the benefit of waiting? Don't pray right now. Don't do anything right now. Why? Because you need to make a ghusl and you have nowhere to make a ghusl. So what's the benefit of waiting it out? Maybe it's possible you find a way to make a ghusl before the salat goes out. You with me? What you want to do is make a ghusl before you pray. That's what you want to do. I know, I have nowhere to make a ghusl. Yeah, but it's 1:30 and it's not even until 4 o'clock. There's no, not like that, but there's no rush. Not that there's no rush, but you have time before the salat goes out. And it's possible that something comes up and you're able to find somewhere to make a ghusl, and you're fine, right? If that's not the case, then the person has to pray. There's no time that we just don't pray. If that's not the case, the person not able to make a ghusl, and they have to pray without making a ghusl, then they pray. In that case, it's a case of necessity. In the case of necessity, it was as if you didn't have any clothes. Somebody stole all your clothes or burned all your clothes. So now it's time to pray Fajr. I don't have no clothes, I ain't praying. No. You pray as you are. In the case of Barora, it's a necessity, dire necessity.
The question that the brother asks is kind of, it needs to be clarified a little bit, because what do we mean that you don't have nowhere to make a ghusl? Do we mean that it's not a tub, it's not a shower?
Let's say, for example,
Ghusl with a sink.
a person, where? Out there?
Yeah, I mean, if you had
Your
to,
odor gonna be exposed. How you gonna do that?
you could go in the bathroom, because the condition of ghusl could be met in that little area back there.
So hey, it could be.
See what I'm saying?
I'm with you. But realistically, I don't think most people want to come into a place without checking with the administration of somebody and just go back there and take their clothes off. You know what I'm saying? Now, if somebody was able to talk to the administration and they allowed that in a place, that's a different situation. But let's say a brother come in here, there's nobody here. He don't know who's going to come in and out while he's here. And the norm is not that people come in here and make ghusls in the sink. That's not the norm. So they take it as, I could take my clothes, somebody might walk in, my whole odor is exposed. In that case, I don't have anywhere to make a ghusl.
See, Sheikh, but you know what, you're making it specific to this masjid. And Alhamdulillah, what other masjid got showers?
In that case, yeah, I'm taking the question, I'm carrying the question as if there is no way to make a ghusl. Why? Because if there's a way to make a ghusl, you make the ghusl.
Right.
If you can go in the shower and actually got a shower and they allow, that's when you make the ghusl. But I'm carrying a worst case scenario. There is no way to make a ghusl. You should still wait it out just in case the opportunity comes up. Tell you, the opportunity doesn't come up, the salat already go out, and the next salat coming in. A person prays how they are. It's the Lord. It's necessity, dire necessity. Wallahu a'lam. We'll stop there, inshallah, next week. Let me stop there. Oh, yeah. Next week, inshallah, we'll continue with the things that necessitate a ghusl. What makes it obligatory for a person to make a ghusl? When does it become obligatory to make a ghusl? Inshallah ta'ala. Wa sallallahu wa sallam ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam.